Her name was Emma, and every day at lunch, she sat alone. Not because she wanted to, but because no one chose her. She'd walk into the cafeteria with her tray, scanning for a friendly face, an empty seat that felt safe. But the groups closed before she could reach them. The conversations continued without her. The laughter never included her. At 8 years old, she learned something that would shape the rest of her life. She was choosable only when there were no other options. So Emma learned to adapt. She became the one who gave. She'd bring extra snacks to share, loan her favorite toys, do homework for others, laugh at jokes that weren't funny, agree with opinions she didn't hold. She discovered that if she made herself useful enough, indispensable enough, she could purchase proximity to belonging. Not friendship, but close enough to fool herself. But deep down, she knew. They wanted what she could give them. They didn't want her. At 16, someone finally chose her. His name was Tyler. He wasn't particularly kind. He wasn't particularly interested. But he was there, and he saw her. For Emma, that was everything. She ignored the way he'd cancel plans last minute, the way he'd only text when he wanted something, the way he'd flirt with other girls in front of her, because the alternative, being alone again, being the girl no one chose, was worse than being chosen badly. This was the moment the pattern truly locked in. Any attention was better than no attention. Any choice was better than being unchosen.
At 23, Emma met Daniel. And Daniel was different. He was kind, consistent. He called when he said he would. He introduced her to his friends. He chose her every day. So, she married him. Quickly. Because girls who spend their lives being unchosen don't hesitate when someone finally chooses them. The wedding was beautiful. Daniel meant every word of his vows, and Emma meant hers too. But she'd brought something invisible to the marriage, something that would quietly destroy it. The 8-year-old who still couldn't believe anyone would choose her and stay.
Daniel didn't change. Emma did. Every time he worked late, she heard, he's losing interest. Every time he wanted space, she heard, he's leaving. Every time he was quiet, she heard, he regrets choosing me. She started calling more, texting constantly, needing reassurance that became exhausting to give. She'd get upset when he wanted to see his friends, anxious when he didn't respond immediately. Daniel didn't understand. He hadn't changed. He still loved her. But love wasn't the language Emma spoke anymore. She spoke abandonment. She spoke rejection. She spoke in the voice of every cafeteria where she ate alone. And slowly, inevitably, Daniel started pulling away. Not because he stopped loving her, but because being loved by someone who doesn't believe they're lovable is suffocating. The night Daniel asked for space, Emma felt 8 years old again. Standing in that cafeteria, watching the groups close, knowing she'd be alone. She begged, she promised to change, she apologized for needs she couldn't name. But Daniel was already gone. Not physically, he'd stay another 3 months trying, but emotionally, he'd had to leave to survive. When he finally moved out, Emma was devastated, but not surprised. She'd been waiting for this moment since the day they met. The girl no one chose had finally been unchosen. Again. And the pattern she'd spent her life confirming was complete. 6 months later, Emma sat in a therapist's office, and for the first time, someone asked her to go back, not to the marriage, further. "Tell me about elementary school," the therapist said.
and Emma began to cry. Not the desperate crying of the breakup, but the quiet crying of recognition. She saw it, finally. The 8-year-old who never got chosen, the teenager who settled for crumbs, the adult who destroyed her own marriage by believing she didn't deserve it. This wasn't about Daniel. It never was. It was about the cafeteria, the birthday parties, the groups that closed, the childhood rejection that became the lens through which she saw every relationship. The therapist had a term for it: anxious attachment formed through peer rejection trauma. But Emma just called it finally understanding why love always felt like waiting to be left.
Emma's story doesn't end with a new relationship. It doesn't end with Daniel coming back. It ends with something quieter, but more profound. Emma learning that being chosen isn't the same as being worthy, that she was always worthy. The cafeteria just couldn't see it. What you've just witnessed is called peer rejection trauma, when childhood social exclusion creates attachment patterns that follow us into adulthood. The child who wasn't chosen becomes the adult who can't believe anyone would choose them. And that disbelief becomes the thing that pushes people away. It's not about blame. The 8-year-old wasn't wrong. She adapted brilliantly to a painful reality. But the adult doesn't need those same defenses anymore. Healing doesn't mean erasing the cafeteria. It means no longer letting it write every chapter. It means learning, slowly, that the groups that closed weren't making a statement about your worth. They were just groups, and you deserved better friends. If you recognize Emma's story, know this: the pattern can change. Anxious attachment isn't a life sentence. It's a learned response to a painful situation, and what was learned can be unlearned. You don't have to keep auditioning for people who should feel lucky to know you. The girl no one chose? She deserved to be chosen. She always did.